everybody, and welcome to the Active Love Adoptions podcast. My name is Alyssa, and I'm joined by my mom, Heidi. And today we have Chantel, who is an adoptive mother who has been so kind enough to come on and kind of share her adoption story with us.
Hello,
So thank
Chantel.
you so much for coming.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I forgot to tell you our story. I mean, I'm an adoptive mom too, and she's my adopted child,
Love
um,
it.
the oldest of four. So,
Yep,
Wow.
the
yeah,
first one.
Amazing.
yeah. Wanted us to, she's the reason we went back 3 more times.
How old are you, Alyssa?
I just turned 30 this last August.
Yeah, I love hearing from adoptee adults.
Yeah.
My daughter's 6, and
Mm-hmm.
so I always wonder how this is going to be in the future. And so I just like to sit at the feet of
Yeah.
adoptee adults
Yeah,
and learn from you guys and hear from your experience. And of course, each is very different.
Yeah.
it
But
is. Yeah.
as an adoptive mom, I try to do my best to be as earnest to learn from adoptee adults as possible. So,
Oh,
in
that's
their
great.
experiences. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And hers is different too. Hers is more of was closed.
Okay.
So she doesn't really
I don't
have,
really know much about my birth mother or birth father.
no,
Mm-hmm.
haven't been
Mm-hmm.
easy for us to find either.
Mm-mm.
So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
after the fact, but
Yeah.
and that was 30 years ago, which
Yeah. Yeah.
adoption, the face of adoption looks so much different
Yeah,
now
it's changed
Totally.
a lot. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
than it was. So
Mhm.
just doing this podcast for I think over a year now, maybe a year.
I think about a
But
year.
it's really opened my eyes to open adoption and how that can really help all people within the Triangle Hill.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it just works. It's just added family for everyone when it works like that. So
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah,
Kind of the best case scenario.
what we've
Yeah.
seen so far.
You know
But
what? Let me put it on Do Not Disturb for just a
okay,
second so
yeah.
we do not get something here. Um, okay. Very good. All right. Just didn't want to get a phone call in the middle of the
Yeah,
podcast.
no,
So,
you're good. You're good. So you can just tell us what led you to adopting. Is it something that you always wanted to do, or
yes. So, not um, always, but I became intrigued and very interested when we struggled with infertility for several years before I had
mm,
my biological son. It was about 4 or 5 years, and it was very painful. And at some point, like we were told by doctors that there was a 0 to 1 chance of us conceiving, and so we're like, well, I mean, we want to be parents, and so
yeah,
this is something that we didn't. I wanted so bad to experience a pregnancy, but I wanted to be a mom, and my husband wanted to be a dad more than that. And so we are people of deep faith. We're Christians, and we trust the Lord wholeheartedly, and we believe that we were adopted by our Father in heaven as children of God. And we think that adoption, despite of it being born, an earthly adoption being born out of brokenness, is usually a broken situation, that it can be a very beautiful thing. And we knew several families that had adopted, and so we were interested. But I ended up getting some treatment, a surgery, and I became pregnant and had our son. And we were thrilled, but we still considered adopting after that. We thought it would look different. We wanted to have another biological child and then have a third adopted.
mhm,
But the Lord works in ways that are not always according to our
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
plan. In
yeah,
fact, not often according to our plans.
yeah,
And And so when my son was about 18 months old, I was unexpectedly diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh,
I was 33 at the time, and no family history, nothing
that's
that
young.
was alarming. So it was just very shocking.
Yeah.
And so we went through that treatment, and it was a year of, 6 surgeries, chemotherapy, the whole thing. We
Yeah.
threw the kitchen sink and everything at it, and I have been cancer free for 10 years now,
No,
gratefully.
Oh,
congratulations. Yeah.
yeah.
And so, but we knew that because my tumors were hormonal, and
Mhm.
then whenever we looked into what it would look like to try another pregnancy, that did not look like a good option for several years, because I had to take hormone suppressants to keep
The cancer.
tumor at bay. Yes. And
Yeah.
so anyway, we knew then that we wanted to grow our family, and we knew that we wanted to pursue adoption. And so I am from Brazil,
Oh,
and I we wanted a little girl,
oh,
and we specifically, adoption is one of the few situations where you can actually choose the gender and control. There's
yes,
very little you
Yeah,
can
that is
control,
true.
but you can control the gender of the
it
baby.
is.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we requested a little girl,
Mhm.
and we tried to adopt internationally from Brazil, and
Yeah.
that's something we pursued for a while, but there was so much red tape. Hi, baby. I'm on a podcast. Okay. This is my son.
Hi.
Hi.
This is my son, Knox David. He's
He's
about to
early.
turn 12. He was a
Oh, wow.
miracle baby.
No,
So,
he's early.
and so anyway, we decided to because it was so much red tape, it was so complicated, despite of the things that we had done to pursue other options. We actually went into a conference, to an adoption conference. At the
Okay.
time, it was held in Rockwall, the suburbs of Dallas. There's a large church there, Lake Point Church, that they have an amazing adoption ministry that was led for a while by a dear friend of mine.
Mhm.
And they organized this amazing conference where they had like workshops of, if it was like there was a foster care, like, family information about that,
Yeah.
international adoption, domestic adoption, embryo adoption, just all kinds
Oh,
of
wow.
things,
All
and
types
like
of stuff.
information. Yeah. So it kind of like, I opened up this big can of worms, and it was a great way to like, okay, we want to like explore our options. This is
Yeah.
a perfect
Yeah.
situation. And so we considered the foster care system for a while, but because our ultimate goal was adoption, and the foster care system ultimate goal is reunification with family,
Yeah.
we felt like those were conflicting things. And we know several families that still adopted through the foster care system, but at
Yeah.
that point we decided to do private domestic adoption, and looked at several agencies. And honestly, I think because of a season of so much waiting between, our infertility journey and then my cancer journey, I wanted to find an agency that had a really successful rate of turnaround of matching with potential birth moms. And I heard of this agency in California. We knew somebody that had done that, and they had a really good success rate with that. And so we went with that, even though we still are in Texas. And
Okay.
so we used that agency, and don't you know it? Again, the Lord had other plans, because what we thought would be a quick match and turnaround
Yeah.
turned into about 3 adoption disruptions, a
Oh,
while
wow.
to get matched. And so, that journey ended up being a difficult journey too. When are a family that is hopeful to adopt, in theory, you understand
Yeah.
that birth mom can choose to parent at any point. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, after, even
Yeah.
sometimes after
Yeah.
birth, depending on the state and all
Yeah.
that. But, and you're taking that risk regardless. You're at the mercy, right?
Yes, you
And you
totally are.
understand that theoretically, but there is this, you know, like expectation, like we're like quite not literally but emotionally expecting this child,
Yeah.
and so it
Yeah.
comes with grief and disappointment. Is it really is a roller coaster ride. But
It
I'm
totally is.
sure.
Yeah.
yeah, and so we, um, we again just trusted the Lord in it, and towards the end, it started getting a little bit hard. It was about 2 years, I want to say, and which isn't. I mean, I guess some are longer, but it's when you're anxious, when you're hopeful that
Yeah.
this would have happened anytime, and
We were expecting it to be sooner than that because
exactly.
that's
And
the
we
reason
were
we took
hoping
that
to not
8.
have disruptions. And
Yeah.
there were situations where, yeah, birth mom chose to parent, which, we completely understand
Yeah.
and support and love them through it. But it was difficult. One was actually a long pregnancy, and it was like a week before birth that she decided to parent. And so
Mhm.
it was almost like, I think she was 2 months when we were matched. And
Oh,
so it was
wow.
just like this long.
You were with her the whole time.
Yes. So anyway, but then we got, and honestly, every disruption for us, the relationship with the birth mom was good. It was how would I describe it? It was cordial. It was like, but it wasn't like natural, it was just like, we were always like very respectful, but there was just, it felt like some type of barrier. And I mean, and don't you know it, they wanted to parent, so that made sense a little
Mhm.
bit.
Yes.
But
Yeah, they
when we
didn't
were
open up.
yeah, so
Yeah.
when we matched with Ivy's birth mom, her name is Ivy Joy. She's 6,
Okay.
and she's right now on a daddy-daughter date with my
Oh,
husband.
okay.
They
Oh,
every
wow.
Friday. I mean, it's nothing fancy. They go to the dollar
Yeah.
store and she picks out a couple of things. But anyway, so if she comes in the middle, I'll show her to you guys. But
Yeah.
her birth mom, his name is Savannah. Savannah was 15 years old at the time. She
Oh,
had
wow.
hid her whole pregnancy, and
Mhm.
she's tall and she wears like a lot of baggy clothes. And
Mhm.
so nobody knew she was pregnant. And then when she was um, 37 weeks, she texted her mom and confessed that she was pregnant. Her
Okay.
mom,
Wow.
and this is in Seattle, Washington, and we are in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
And so we, her mom freaked out, and the next day took her to. They didn't know how far along
Yeah.
Savannah was, and so they went to an abortion clinic in
Way past
Seattle.
that. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I said she was way past abortion.
Oh, yes. I mean, and
Right.
I don't know if in the state of Washington this would have been legal at this point. I don't know about, because
Oh,
there's been
okay.
a lot of changes, but at the
Yeah.
Mhm.
time it wasn't, gratefully.
Yeah.
But because there are some states that late term abortion is legal, and so anyway, she, they said, "I'm sorry, you're too far along." And the abortion clinic actually gave them the information of our agency.
Okay.
And
Wow.
so they looked through, the profiles and all that.
Mhm.
And she found our family. I mean, we had beautiful photos. I mean, I had to put so much time into my portfolio,
Mhm.
and this heartfelt written letter to the birth mom. And it was just this. And I think because my son has curly hair, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that would be so cool if she had a big brother with curly hair." That
Yeah.
was the thing.
That's what stood out.
Yes, I mean, and
He
then
does have really curly, pretty hair. I did see that.
yes,
It's
yes,
Oh,
really
his
cute.
darling. Yes.
yes. So anyway, we got on a call the very next day. The agents contacted us. They told us her story. We didn't have pictures or anything. We just got on a phone call. It wasn't a video call. And no, I take that back. The agency called us and they explained the situation. And the way that it works is we have, at least with that agency, we had 24 hours to accept or deny the match.
Oh, okay.
And my husband and I had, like, we just looked at each other and we accepted on the spot. We had not seen her photos or anything. We both felt an immediate peace
Yeah.
about this match and about our baby
Mhm.
and the whole situation. When we heard that this baby was almost aborted, it was just
Yeah.
something that was just very touching. And so we accepted the match, and then we got on a call with them, with her and her mom, a Savannah birth mom, and her mom, who's my age.
Oh, right.
And so she's kind of
That's
Wow.
like my,
crazy. Yeah.
I'm old enough to be her daughter, but to be her mom. But anyway, and it was the most natural, like fun almost
Yeah.
conversation. It felt very different than all the other matches that we had had. And so um, I mean, it was like 2 weeks later, we flew out to Seattle as a family. And a Savannah, because it was very hush hush. Nobody knew she was pregnant. Only her mom, not even like her dad, her sisters, nobody knew. And so she expressed or checked in the box, I guess, of the paperwork, that she did not want an open adoption.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, I wanted an open adoption. Um, but it's a two-way street. I can't have an open adoption by myself.
No, you
No,
can't.
Like
that's
No.
it's
not really how
so,
that works.
yes, they need to want that too. And I remember being disappointed that that's what she wanted, but again, just feeling such a sense of peace. And so when we landed in Seattle shortly before her birth, she texted us and she wanted to see us, and we're like, sure, okay. So
Yeah.
the next day, I said, "Do you want to go to the mall and shop for?" She's a child, she's a 15,
Mhm.
and so I took her to the mall and I got her like this ring, and I was like, I want you to remember this ring for for her baby, and we had already picked out her name, and she loved it, um, and she just wanted to be around us. It was it wasn't even something that we sat down and like, okay, so you check this box. Do you want or not? How is this going to look like? It just sort of happened very naturally. And I just was so intentional about just loving her, postpartum, her milk came in. And so, it's very painful. And so I was like, hey, I have some remedies. So I drove out to her place, and like a week later, we had to be in Washington for several weeks before we could move to Texas.
Mhm.
And
Interstate
I was
compact.
like, hey, I'm gonna go on a little road trip. Do you want to come? So it was a road trip that I took her. Like, she's, Ivy's like a week old, and then Savannah postpartum, and I'm like, and so we have just, FaceTime, and so it just started a relationship really, really naturally.
Mhm.
And it's been wonderful. She comes every year for Ivy Joy's birthday,
Mhm.
since her first birthday. So 6 times she has come to visit us. When she was younger, she would stay for a couple weeks. Now she's an adult and she has a job, so she can't get
Yeah.
take off that
Mhm.
long.
Yeah.
But she comes and it's just the most natural. Like, I'm just so grateful for it.
Mhm.
And just recently this year, I was like, you know what, I want Ivy to meet the rest of her birth family, because actually shortly after the adoption, it all came out that she was pregnant. I think somebody saw somebody's phone on a picture or whatever, so it became known among her family. And understandably, there was a lot of hurt from that, and people that just like,
So then I have to ask, so then what you're saying is that she ended up telling her mom, but they didn't tell anyone else.
correct,
So
Okay.
so
correct,
no one in the family knew anything about
exactly.
how that
And
would.
so, and they found out, like, after birth and all that, and they, aunties and her dad, and, like, um, and they just wish that it had been different. But at that point, it was all legal,
Yeah.
and she had signed the papers, and we were, well into the process. And that's stuff that I eventually found out.
Yeah.
But I wanted Ivy to meet her extended birth family. Excuse me.
Bless you.
She's older now. She's always understood, like, just from early on, that Savannah is very special. We call her Nana, but she couldn't say her name, and so she's Nana. And that she's very special. And eventually, she saw pictures of me pregnant with her brother, and I'm like, you know what, you grew in Nana's belly, and that's why
Mhm.
Nana is your birth mom. So very early on, like, she understood that it also portraying, because it is adoption in a very positive light,
Yeah.
and she's so proud to be adopted. If she hears the word adoption, I'm adopted, she just loves to
Gets
share. And
excited.
That's kind of how I was when I was little. I would always get like so excited whenever adoption got brought up.
yes,
'Cause it's
because
such a
you're like,
cool
yay, this is me too.
yeah.
And so, and then we can say, like, I was like, Jesus adopted us. And so, like, she makes that correlation as well. And so, anyway, it just is very sweet. But she's now understands, because eventually we ended up having also the opportunity to have an open adoption relationship with Ivy's birth dad, and that was a little trickier to explain.
Mhm.
But she's smart, and she understood. And his name is Sean, and so she calls him Sean Shawnee, and now she completely understands that he's her birth dad. And so we just took a trip in February to Seattle to see all of them, to see
Oh,
Savannah and her extended family, and Sean and his extended family. They are not, were together at some point, but are not together anymore. So it was a separate thing. But it
Yeah.
was so, she loves attention. And so everybody
mhm.
wanted Ivy Joy. And
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
it was so special. It was so sweet.
Mhm.
And so, I don't know, as I said earlier, how she's going to, the emotions she's going to feel, and how she's going to, the decisions she's going to make, the reactions she's going to have when she is an adult.
Yeah.
But what I can control now is, and it's not a matter of even controlling, but what I can cultivate rather is as much love and safety for her. And as far as I'm concerned, I've never had insecurity about her birth family, like, what she loves them more, or, I've never had that. I just, the way that I see it is the more love, the merrier.
Yeah.
And I just feel so grateful because, as I said, I was so disappointed in the beginning there that
Yes.
wasn't, we weren't,
Mhm.
that we weren't going to have that
Yeah.
potentially, because that's what she said.
Yeah.
And maybe she didn't understand what she was checking, but, I, and obviously not a lot of, there's a lot of situations where that's not the safest thing for the child. That
Yeah.
it's just so nuanced.
Yeah.
And even within an open adoption relationships, there's so many levels of openness.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we have one of the most open
We
adoption
do.
relationships, and I mean, that I know of. It's such a close relationship, and it's so sweet and natural, and I'm
Mhm.
so grateful for it. But I have the full understanding of um that our story is unique, as is every adoption story, and
Yes.
it's not a cookie cutter way. So I do not, as much as I encourage people, if they ask me, I share about our open adoption story on social media. I don't feel, and I've had people comment like, this is what an ethical adoption is, and all that. And I don't feel that moral high ground just because I just feel
No.
blessed that it happened that way.
Mhm.
It's, it wasn't like I want to do things the ethical way, because I fully understand that there's so many situations in which people, even if they desire to, they that is not an option. That there's boundaries that are not respected and things like that.
Yeah,
And
there is.
so
Like, and what you're saying is correct. I mean, it takes both sides in order for it to work, right?
that's
So,
right. Mhm.
both have to be willing to put the child first above
Mhm.
Yes.
everything else, and their own feelings, and
Yeah.
sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the circumstances, and
Yeah. And
when
it's
it
also like a selfless thing. And
yeah.
that is, and not
Yeah.
to say, oh, I'm so selfless. That's not my point here, but it's also, it's not, it's not an easy thing for a lot of people to wrap their minds
It's not.
around.
Yeah.
And because they want so badly to just like nurture the child, have the best for the child,
Mhm.
that it takes a level of just like just the right situation, a level of like emotional, and I would go as far as to say spiritual maturity to
Mhm.
to get that, but also not just that. Oh, but you have to be mature, but but there's also a level in which so many
Have
complex situations
confidence
need to
too,
be
though.
just right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that you have to have that confidence within yourself, or that, I don't know, how would you put that? Just that you're not threatened by the birth
Yes. Yes.
parent
Hmm.
having
Hmm.
that
Just like
relationship. Because I have to say, when I first got her, and it was closed, um, and I had one fall through, like you're saying. I had that before too, her,
Hmm.
and I was 25, and
Hmm.
now looking back, I didn't want it. I was terrified to lose her, and
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I would have been one of those people that would be scared to
Yes.
have
Yeah.
the closeness of the birth mom.
Hmm.
But over time, and, with the 4th one and stuff, I would have opened that up,
Hmm.
um, with that, if that was a possibility. All 4 of mine happened to be more on the closed spectrum.
Hmm.
Um, it just happened to be that way. We didn't plan it that way. But, I mean, I have her biological sister just
Oh, you
below
do?
her. Yes.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, they're 10.5 months apart. So
Oh,
she had
wow.
she had one, and then, Kendra, her sister, was born 10.5 months later. Um, and with Kendra, she said semi-open, so it gave us a way to get in, but,
Hmm.
the agency's gone out of business, and we can't find any information even with that little note,
Mm.
just 'cause it's been so long, but we'll keep trying. But
Yeah.
the benefit to have the sisters is that they know what their siblings would look like biologically,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
helpful.
which I think is a good thing because they can look at
Mhm.
each other, and yeah, I think that we would have done more of an open, but it just wasn't in the cards for us,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, like it
Hmm.
is now. So, and, it,
Hmm.
like you said, it takes a maturity, I think, within
Hmm.
the people involved, right? To
100%. Yes.
say, um, the child's feelings, I've gotta get past my issues that I have
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
put
And
the
also,
child.
like, I also get if birth moms, it's just too hard for them,
Yes, yeah,
to just have that closeness, and you just never know, and I I entered Savannah into not a contest. It was just like I guess it was sort of like a contest, but it's just a, um, a nonprofit organization that blesses birth moms with trips to
mm.
Disney World. And
Oh,
I'm like,
okay.
Savannah would have so much fun. And so I wrote out this portfolio for her and signed her up. And don't you know it, she was chosen.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so she got to have this like VIP
Oh, that's great.
experience at Disney World with all these other birth moms.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was just this beautiful,
Yeah,
nonprofit. And
yeah,
um, so I'm so glad that she got to experience that, but I don't
yeah,
even know if like, 'cause she didn't know very many birth moms or she hadn't
yeah,
connected. And,
yeah.
just understanding like how the situations are so
Different.
yes, so
Yes,
different. Yeah.
yes,
No
yeah.
cookie cutter.
No,
Mm,
no, I mean,
definitely not.
my first son, but he's my 3rd child, his birth mom, we did have open until he hit 2.5 years. And
Mm,
then once he hit that, she talked to me on the phone and said she didn't wanna have any contact. So,
mm,
no pictures, no letters, she didn't want me calling anymore or anything,
yeah.
and we didn't hear from her since.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and now
And
he's
our open adoption to some extent is conditional,
yeah,
as long as they could keep making good life decisions,
yeah,
like
yeah,
they can be in her life. It's not
yeah,
this, it could change both
yeah.
ways.
Yes, and
Um,
that's what open adoption is, right?
mhm.
It's changing with the ages and learning,
Yes, it evolves. Yeah.
yes, it constantly has to evolve,
Mhm.
right,
Hmm. Hmm.
as life goes on. We had, one of the co-hosts, she was a birth mom, her name's Mackenzie, and her she ended up marrying the birth father of the child she placed, their
Mm,
son, and now they have 4 other children.
mm,
Um, and theirs is a very open adoption. And he'll go and he'll stay the night at their house and stuff. And that's one thing that she talked about is boundaries and
Mm-hmm.
constantly having to figure out where those are with,
Mhm.
with the her and him and the adoptive family, and just
For sure. Yeah,
constantly changing and what that looks like.
Yeah, I've had several people reach out to me on social media asking advice, and like, they have an open adoption, but there's some boundaries that are not respected. And we have the physical distance of being across the country
Yeah.
from each other, which
Mhm.
is it just kind of eliminates a level
Yeah.
of complexity that some people don't have.
Mhm.
Savannah has a boyfriend who I think is darling, and he has a son who lives with them. And if we lived, I mean, just hypothetically,
Yeah.
close
Yeah.
together, she's like, "Oh, can I have her for the weekend?" I would not feel comfortable with her
Yeah.
spending the night, not because I don't trust Savannah, but
Mhm.
with other people that I don't have the same level of trust being
Sure.
there.
Yeah.
And so those are things that I had not had to navigate.
Yeah.
And but you just never know,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't. Yeah, you don't, because she's so young when she had her, she's
Yes.
still young, right?
Yeah.
So she's still got a
Yeah.
lot of,
Yes.
she
Yes.
might marry someone completely different, and
Yeah. And I think one thing that's helpful also for our relationship is um she doesn't, you know, she loves her, but she's also glad about her decision. Is not
yeah,
something that there's like this like tangible grief about it. I mean, there might have been times
yeah,
that she felt like she regretted it, but it's not something that it's like super sensitive. It's just like she's living her life, and she
mhm,
understands it was the best thing for Ivy, and she still stands by that. So that is
yeah,
helpful, too. And so, yeah, so
yeah,
that's our
yeah.
story.
Oh, good.
I'm
Well,
open
it's
to
a
any other questions that you might have, but yeah.
well, um, usually after telling all your story, is there something, well, you talked about having 3 of them fall through. Is there something that, do you wish that someone would have discussed that being a possibility? Did they discuss that with you being a possibility, and what happens if that does happen?
Yeah, no, so we had several friends that had been through that process, so we knew that that's part of the game.
Yeah.
But I believe the agency communicated that with us, and I
Mhm.
think that's something that definitely should be discussed so you're
Yeah,
prepared.
yeah,
We knew what we were signing up for, and I
yeah,
think it would not be a healthy thing for hopeful adoptive parents to be blindsided by that.
yeah,
There should
yeah,
be a very clear
yeah,
communication from the beginning that this
yeah,
is because that's not be something that they might be willing to risk. And
yeah,
but we definitely we're very aware. So
yeah, yeah. So the cases that you got involved with,
mhm.
were they deemed high risk? I mean, because there's different, because with our adoption agency, my mom actually owns it, and like I said, I've adopted 4, and I've worked with the agency for over 30 years. But,
Mhm.
so with with adoption, if we deem that there's a higher risk, then that's something that the adoptive family will tell the family that there's a higher risk if the birth father won't sign, or, just different things like that.
I
So
don't
when
remember having been told like a category of risk.
Okay. So
There
it was just birth mom changing mind in your cases.
Yes, you just,
Okay.
aware of that. They were open about because there was one lady, and this was actually a little girl from Arkansas, and she was already 9 months old. The
Oh,
agency
okay.
mainly dealt with like newborns, but she
Yeah,
was one that was a little unusual.
yeah,
And birth mom would ghost. The agency would ghost us and would just
yeah,
it was just like tail signs.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so they were honest with us about it. It's
yeah,
not like they were just trying to cover up for her.
yeah,
So we knew that it was just a shaky situation.
yeah,
Um, and ultimately, she ended up choosing to parent. And but it was dragged on for so long because she would just like, no, I want to do this. And okay, let's because it was going
Kept
to be
going
a
back.
different situation. Like we were going to drive out and have an exchange, which is strange, but
That
like,
is really weird.
so we're like,
Mhm.
okay, when are we driving out to have this exchange? And
Yeah.
we're trying to make plans, and will there be an exchange? And it was just honestly quite stressful,
Yeah.
and so um but no, I don't remember having been told like a level of risk.
Okay. Okay. Because I mean, there's different. If there is a risk involved, it's something that's told ahead, before they're
Yeah,
shown.
yeah,
That that we'll give them the profile, and that the adoptive family will say, yeah, go ahead, show us to this birth mom. And
yeah.
so in those circumstances is when they would say if it was a higher risk or not.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that, I mean, my understanding, at least at the time, we were being shown to all potential birth mothers who were
okay.
pregnant with a baby girl. I mean,
Oh,
just across the country, they didn't really ask permission to like, can we show it to them? And so
mhm,
when we were, you know, chosen by potential birth mom or expectant mom, then that's when we would have those discussions.
okay. Yeah, because I guess the way that we try to narrow it down for both sides, I guess, um, the adoptive family will just kind of have an area that they want to be in, what they're, if a boy or girl or this or that. Um, then when we have a birth mom, we say, okay, this is kind of where her price will end up. The fees
Hmm.
will end up.
Yeah.
And we're,
Yeah, we lost money because we were
yeah,
covering a lot of things. Ivy
yeah.
Joy, she's here. She got here, so
Oh,
maybe she
yeah.
can she can peek in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I was just curious about that because we just have different areas and how
Mhm.
we do it. If
Mhm.
really quick before she comes in, is there something that you would tell an adoptive family looking to adopt that you wish you would have known going into it?
Um.
Or encouraging words or
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Hold on. Just Ivy Joy,
Yeah.
come here, baby. Okay. Um. I would say that you have to be open-handed. Um. Look at this baby doll.
Oh, she's so cute. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Did
Guess
you
what we're
have a
talking
date with
about?
your dad?
Do you have a date with daddy? Yeah. What'd you get at the dollar store? Ooh.
I
Oh,
pretend,
look at
Oh, how
that.
I
fun.
pretend, I pretend, well, I did a video, I pretend that this is the Dubai chocolate.
Oh, you
So I,
pretend.
yeah, so I did the Dubai chocolate video.
Hey, guess what we're talking about?
My and I dates.
No, we're talking about your adoption story with Nana and Shanchani.
Yeah,
Isn't that cool? Are you so proud to be adopted? Yeah.
it's
Okay,
so
go play
cool,
with
huh?
your stuff until we wrap it up. Say bye
Bye
Hi,
bye.
Bye.
sweetheart.
bye.
She's darling.
She is.
Painting. I didn't go paint.
Okay, close the door, baby doll. So, I mean, as far as like what I wish had been different, um, I it wasn't something that the agency could have controlled, or like, I just feel like everything kind of fell into place because the Lord was preparing us to be Ivy's parents, and all
Lord.
those disruptions happened for a reason. And
Yeah.
had they not happened, we would not have been ready to take that call and say yes to our daughter. And
Yes.
so, my encouragement to hopeful adoptive families is to keep your eyes on the long run, and to know that if they are believers in Jesus, that the Lord works all things for the ultimate good, and even when it feels painful at the time, because none of my story, having cancer, having infertility, having adoption disruptions would have been anything that I would have chosen. But I am so grateful for those things because it has made me who I am, has made our family who we are. And just looking at, when a closed door just brings you that much closer to your ultimate child. And so, for an hopeful adoptive parent, just know that that will come at the right time. And I get the disappointment if things don't work out the way that you hoped with a birth mom, or even with foster care, or just different adoption stories. Um, but ultimately, just stay the course and try to be open-handed, with your, like, emotions, and you know just know that you, ultimately, it will be good. This will be a good, this will be a good, I know few adoption story, and that's not true. I mean, I know there's some adoption stories out there that don't have a happy ending, but the majority that I know have a
Yeah.
beautiful happy ending. And the majority of hopeful adoptive parents, they really truly have a desire to nurture and raise a child in a good household, and they have the best intentions. And I feel like those people will have a happy ending. So
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you. I think so too.
Yeah.
And I believe the same way you do, that God was preparing you right for the child that was meant to be in your home. So
mhm.
there's might be little hiccups along the way that ultimately lead you to. I mean, I believe every single one. I mean, if it wasn't for the one I had fall through, I wouldn't have had Alyssa, which then in turn got me her sister.
Yeah.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that happens later. So I look at that stuff all the time too. That it's just those in the moment you think they're bad, but then a few years later you can look down and go, "Oh my gosh, look how he worked
Yeah. It's like
in
all
our
those things are
lives."
supposed to
Yeah,
happen so we can
Yes.
that's meant to
Yes.
be ours.
yeah, that is supposed to be in our family. Well, we appreciate you sharing your story
Yeah.
with us.
You are so welcome. I hope this
Well,
blesses any hopeful adoptive parents. And I just
yeah.
want to go as far as to say, if somebody's listening to me and
Mm-hmm.
wants to contact me on social media, whatever, I am very open about our story. And I'm so happy to, contribute however I can to the adoption community. And if there's somebody specific, if I have any answers, or I can just share my experience, I
Yeah.
certainly don't have the answer to everything. As I said, some people contact me, it's like, what would you do in a situation? I was like, I don't know. Like, but I just want to say that, you're welcome to reach out as well. So
Yeah, and we can put your information when we put your podcast up on YouTube. It'll go on YouTube too. We can
okay.
put your Instagram on there
Mhm.
Okay, very good.
that they can get a hold of you if
Yeah,
that's
love
if
that.
that's good, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's totally fine. That's
Okay.
totally fine.
Well, thank you. Have a good weekend.
You
And
guys too. Thank you so much for
yeah,
inviting me.
yeah, you're welcome. She'll close us out and then we'll let you go.
All right. Thank you so much, Chantel, for sharing your story and introducing us to your daughter. It was so nice to see her too.
I'm so glad she got
So
to pick
fun.
in. Isn't she a doll?
Yeah,
And your son.
and your
He was a
son.
doll too.
Yes,
To kind of
yes.
meet a lot of your family. And thank you so much for sharing your story. We hope
You're
that
so welcome. Thank you for having
people
me.
enjoyed listening to it as much as we did.
Mhm.
And if any of you guys out there have any questions or want to know more about adoption, you can visit our website at www.activeloveadoptions.com.
Thank you again, Chantel. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.